Good morning. Welcome to our service this morning. Open it up briefly for if you do have a prayer request or something to share. I will make note that at the end of the sermon, we'll have time for you to share specifically about your mother's maybe memory or a story or something like that. So if you want to share something like that, we'll have time for that at the end. So be thinking about what you would like to share for that. But we'll open it up if there is anything else, prayer request or anything else that you would like to share now during sharing time. No one? I guess rain or something. You guys all quiet and all right. Well, in that case, we will go right into the sermon this morning. For obviously today, I should have noted, is Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to you mothers out there. And it's an exciting day. The one day of year where usually moms get a little bit of a break. Where kids and husbands usually kind of help out with some of the chores around the house and so on. But it's that one day, I guess. Mother's job is never finished. So this morning, our text is taken out of 1 Kings chapter 3, and we'll start in verse 16. 1 Kings 3, and while you're turning there, I'll give you a little bit of a background. This is where Solomon, if you remember the story of Solomon, is a brand new king. Here in the first part of chapter 3, God reveals himself to him in a dream and tells Solomon, you can have whatever you want. What do you want? Ask, and I'll give it to you. I'll bless you with that. And instead of asking for riches or power or fame or might, Solomon asks for discernment, wisdom and discernment. And God says, okay, I'll give that to you, and I'm going to bless you with these other things too. But this section, the last half of this chapter, 16 and on, in fact, the heading in my Bible here, the ESV, it says Solomon's wisdom. This is often, we look at this as this is a kind of an example of Solomon's wisdom. And it is. I don't want to take away from that this morning, but this morning, as we look at this, I do want to look more on the side of the mothers, these two mothers, and titled the sermon this morning, The Two Mothers, and looking at these two mothers and their reaction. There's one that's good and one that's bad, or not so good, I guess. And we want to focus a little bit more on the one that we view as the good mother, I guess. So if you'll follow along, I'd like to start reading in chapter 16 of 1 Kings, verse 16 of 1 Kings 3. It says, Then two prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. The one woman said, O my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I gave birth to a child while she was in the house. Then on the third day, after I gave birth, this woman also gave birth, and we were alone. There was no one else with us in the house, only we two were in the house. And this woman's son died in the night because she lay on him. And she arose at midnight and took my son from beside me while your servant slept, and laid him at her breast, and laid her dead son at my breast. When I arose in the morning to nurse my child, behold, he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning, behold, he was not the child that I had borne. But the other woman said, No, the living child is mine, and the dead child is yours. The first said, No, the dead child is yours, and the living child is mine. Thus they spoke before the king. Then the king said, The one says, This is my son that is alive, and your son is dead. The other says, No, but your son is dead, and my son is a living one. Then the king said, Bring me a sword. So a sword was brought before the king. And the king said, Divide the living child in two, and give half to the one and half to the other. Then the woman whose son was alive said to the king, because her heart yearned for her son. O my Lord, give her the living child, and by no means put him to death. But the other said, He shall be neither mine nor yours. Divide him. Then the king answered and said, Give the living child to the first woman, and by no means put him to death. She is his mother. And all Israel heard the judgment of the king, that the king had rendered. And they stood in awe of the king, because they perceived that the wisdom of God was in him to do justice. So, as I said here, this is reflecting of Solomon's wisdom and God giving him wisdom in these circumstances. I'm assuming this is just one of many, many that he encountered, that he had to deal with. But let's take a look at these two mothers, both brand new mothers. Doesn't say that this was their first child, but either way, they had very young babies here that they were taking care of. And the first thing that we notice here is they gave birth, and that Andy touched on it during the announcements, that all of us have that one thing in common, right? I'm pretty sure that none of you is here today without your mom having given birth to you. That is one thing that we all have in common. We have or had a mother who gave birth to us, that went through that pain, the hardship, I guess, of carrying you in her womb for 9 months, and then also the pain of the actual childbirth. And all of us had that, a mother, a person, a mom who did that for us, who brought us into this world through pain and suffering, as the scripture says, as God had told Eve, that it would be through pain and suffering that would happen. And it is through this process, I haven't experienced that, obviously, but I've seen my wife experience it. And it is a lot of pain and discomfort going through that. But each time that I remember, after holding that newborn, she said that she would do it all over again. Take all that pain again, do it again a second time, to be able to give that life. And I'm assuming many of the mothers here and your mothers would have said the same thing, that it's nothing in comparison to holding that newborn baby and going through that pain for that child. That they would do it again. And I remember bringing Haley home from the hospital, and I remember trying to walk out of the hospital with her, and I was worried that the alarms would sound or there'd be security guards coming and stop us, because we were so clueless. We didn't know what to do with the new baby. And then I was worried that they wouldn't come and stop us. They send us home with this new baby. We had no idea. And it didn't take long for Deborah to know instinctively, intuitively, what this baby needed. When she would cry, Haley, not Deborah, Deborah knew, as her mother, she found out quickly, she needs to eat. She's hungry. Or she's tired. She's grouchy, she's tired, she needs to take a nap. Or maybe she has a messy diaper or a burp. There were these things, the practical things that moms pick up on pretty quick. They know, this is what's going on. When someone else was holding her and she started crying, mom would say, I know what's wrong. Give her here, I'll take care of her, and took care of the needs. That is what our moms, each one of our moms has done for us and did for us. So as we look at this account here, we can assume that these two were similar in the sense of taking care of their babies. Now, the first mom, she makes a note here a couple times to mention that there was nobody else with them. There was just the two of them. There were no other witnesses. And in bringing this to Solomon, we can assume, it would be better if, there's other people around, there's other people that have seen their babies, they know whose is whose, and they could testify. But they couldn't. These were opposite stories. One of these mothers is obviously lying. And Solomon needs to find out which one it is. So he listens to their story and he says, okay, let me get this straight. Verse 23, he says, the one says, this is my son that is alive, and your son is dead. And the other says, no, but your son is dead, and my son is a living one. And I don't know, the text here doesn't show that there was a lot of, that Solomon tried to discern which was right or wrong in the sense of trying to talk it out. He just said, bring me a sword. And my instinct, my thought is, well, is he going to try to torture or encourage the mothers with a sword? Maybe threaten them with this sword? Tell me the truth. Which one of you is lying? But he says, instead, he says, divide the living child in two and give half to each. It sounds like a very practical solution, right? We have two people fighting over one object, cut it in half, and they each get half. And go home, leave me alone. And we know that wasn't, Solomon knew that wasn't his intent. But I'm not sure that these mothers knew that. I don't think they knew that. And they were, the one was moved to speak up. And that's one of the things I want to notice here, is the real mother, the good mother, wasn't afraid to speak up. It was what we sometimes call mama bear mode. And she told the king she was just a lowly prostitute. She didn't know this mighty king might say, you know what, behead all of them, cut them all in half. They're ruining my lunch here. Get them out of here. I'm done with them. She didn't know exactly what Solomon's response would be, but she stops him and says, no, king. She says it respectfully, but she says, no, don't do this. She steps in. She's not afraid to speak up, even though it might put her in harm's way, even though it might be bad for her if she goes against what this king had decreed. And she was willing to put herself in harm's way and stand up in the moment and say, no, this is not the right solution. There's a better solution. I came across this story. I'd heard it before, and then I looked it up this week. And it's simply, I'll just read it to you. The forest fire had been brought under control, and the group of firefighters were working back through the devastation, making sure all the hot spots had been extinguished. As they marched across the blackened landscape between wisps of smoke still rising from the smoldering remains, a large lump on the trail caught a firefighter's eye. As he got closer, he noticed it was the charred remains of a large bird that had burned nearly halfway through. Since birds can easily fly away from the approaching flames, the firefighter wondered what must have been wrong with this bird that it could not escape. Had it been sick or injured? Arriving at the carcass, he decided to kick it off the trail with his boot. As soon as he did, however, he was startled half to death by a flurry of activity under his feet. 4 little birds flailed in the dust and ash, then scurried away down the hillside. The bulk of the mother's body had covered them from the searing flames. Though the heat was enough to consume her, it allowed her babies to find safety underneath in the face of the rising flames. In the face of the rising flames, she had stayed with her young. Her dead carcass and her fleeing chicks told the story well enough. She gave the ultimate sacrifice to save her young. This bird in the wild, and this is told as a true story, I don't know that it's not, gave its life for its young and was there to protect them to the end. We talked about the mama bear coming out sometimes. And I had an experience with a real bear many years ago. Myself and some of my cousins, we were up in Canada doing we called it a work trip. We were building a small shed, but we did a lot of fishing too that week. So, but it's in a mission camp, about 50 miles from town, from Red Lake, from the nearest town. And the last 30 miles is dirt road that you have to drive. It takes about an hour just to drive that dirt part. It's way back in the wilderness up in Ontario. And the one day we had gone into town in the morning, and we were on the way back in the evening. We'd gone in for some supplies and stuff. We were way back, it was evening, and we saw a black bear run across the road in front of us with a couple cubs. And so we pulled up to where we thought they had gone in, and we stopped the truck in the middle of the road, and we were kind of yelling, and none of us was brave enough to try to go after them. And it's a good thing, because in a little bit we saw at least one of the cubs climb up a tree off the road about 50 yards or so. And it was up in a tree. It was above the lower brush, so we could see it really good. And we took some pictures of it. But the mother, when they say don't get between a mama bear and its cubs, it's very true. The mother was, as far as we could tell, was kind of around the base of the tree. And then every once in a while she would rush out to the edge of the road in the underbrush there, and she was snapping and making noise, growling and barking at us. And she was very good at convincing us to stay in the safety of the truck. We knew that if we would get out of the truck and start to go toward that cub, that she would let us know that was not a good decision. And I remember that as, you hear these situations of a mama bear protecting her young, and they will. This one would have. We decided not to keep messing with her. We finally drove off and let them go in peace. But the thing is, that can come out in our earthly mothers too. That aspect of something takes, I don't want to say takes control, but there is an aspect that a mom is willing to stand up for her children that sometimes other people aren't. Usually other people's aren't. And if there's wrong being done, or if there's danger, mothers are willing to put their own life at risk, put their own life in the balance, I guess, sometimes to protect and care for their young. Another thing that mothers are willing to do is to give up their happiness, their joy, their comfort. Here in our text here, what this good mother does, and it says in verse 26, her heart yearned for her son. This moved her. So we know that she put herself possibly in danger with the king and stopped him and said, no, don't do it. But this is what she said. She said, "Oh, my Lord, give her the living child, and by no means put him to death." Here she was. She had given birth to this son. It was her baby. And instead of going on with this and seeing this baby harmed, she says, "No, I will suffer the rest of my life. I'm willing to give up my happiness of having this child, this son, and raising him. Let this other woman raise him. Give him to her instead of him giving up his life." Mothers are selfless. They are willing to give up their happiness, their comfort, for the good of their family, their children. And I remember my mom making those sacrifices many times. The one story that I specifically remember, I think I've shared it here before, probably on a Mother's Day, was that we would butcher chickens as a family when I was a kid. So we had these chickens, and you know that there's white meat and dark meat on a chicken. If you buy them at the grocery store, you can buy all dark meat, all white meat, and you're good to go. But sometimes there's not enough of one to go around. So I remember that I liked dark meat, and I thought it was cool because my mom did too. I thought, I'm like Mom. And there weren't, most of the kids and my dad liked the white meat. And I found out after I was a teenager, after some of the others had moved out of the house, and I think I started eating enough dark meat to make up for it, I discovered that Mom actually preferred the white meat, and she started eating the white meat. And none of us had ever known that. She had just sacrificed that because there wasn't enough white meat to satisfy the ones that liked it. she ate the dark meat. And it's just a small thing, but it's one that for years she had kept that up, and nobody knew it. She hadn't made a big deal about it. There's many times that I see Deborah make sacrifices for our children, for our family, and I'm sometimes just shocked at the selflessness of a mother, and being able to give up their own desires, their own well-being for the well-being of their children. Many of us have, if you have children, or as you were a child, know that children can get sick in the middle of the night. Well, who's usually the one that gets up to take care of the sick children? Typically, it's not dad. Dad might be stumbling around too, but it's mom. Mom is the one that does that. Mom is the one that gets up and takes care of things. Moms are often nurses by default. Little kid comes running with a skinned knee, a scratch, or a puncture that's not too serious. Mom can put a Band-Aid on it, wipe the tears off their eyes, and give them a kiss and send them out back to play, and they're as good as new. Mothers can do that. As we look at in Proverbs 31, there's several verses in there. Obviously, 31 is talking about the virtues of a woman, a mother. And verse 15, it says, "She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household." Moms are taking care of the household. They're providing food. There's something that moms love, and I've noticed this in our home with having a son that enjoys food. And there's something that moms, they get joy out of it. And I should mention, I saw it when I was Carson's age too with my mom. But moms love to fix food and feed their children and family. They're hospitable. That just brings them joy to see their children enjoying their food and the preparations that they've made. In verse 21 of chapter 31, it says, "She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet." And later there it talks about the bed linens and things. Moms take care of some of that practical stuff. Moms keep us in clothes. If it was dads in charge of buying clothes and clothing the children, I can't imagine what children would look like running around. But it's moms who care about that, keep them warm in the winter. And they start running out the door for school, and moms, "Hey, do you have your coat? Get your coat. It's cold." Moms take care of some of that those practical things. Mothers are excellent detectives. They have built-in lie detectors, I've discovered. I learned that in my teens, and I see that again in our home, where they just know. And I remember trying to maybe not lie, because lying is bad, but kind of not using the full truth sometimes with my mom, and she would know. She knew immediately. It's like, "Marcus, no, that's not right." And she just knew. I could never figure out how or why, but it is. They have a built-in lie detector, and I've come to understand, I think it's more than moms knowing so much about lying and how to detect lies. I think moms just know you. Moms know us, and they know when something's wrong. They know when something's not quite right. This child is not acting like he normally would or should. And they just know, because they know the child so intimately. They know when things aren't quite right, know our reactions, and know that we're trying to pull a fast one. Mothers are amazing cheerleaders, and the only group of people that might outdo mothers as cheerleaders, I think, are grandmothers. And moms and grandmothers are the best cheerleaders. They can just spend minutes, possibly hours, talking about the accomplishments of their children and grandchildren, and that's good. There's that pride, and that it does give us that to hear our mom brag on us. It's like, wow, okay. It does give that confidence. It builds our confidence. There are so many more things that I could share about what mothers, their unmeasurable resources of love that they have, and all these other things that moms could do. I would like to, if you'll bear with me, I'd like to read a short little children's book. This is a book that we've had in our home for many years, and my wife would read it to our kids. And it is a little poem. It says, "I love you because you're you," and written as a mother writing to her child. I'll hold it up. Hopefully you can kind of see the pictures. But I apologize if you can't. It says, "I love you when you're happy and grinning ear to ear. I love you when you're sleepy and want to snuggle near. I love you when you're silly, dancing round and round. I love you when you're frightened and hear a scary sound. I love you when you're bashful and hide behind my knee. I love you when you're brave and from my side you flee. I love you when you're curious and searching here and there. I love you when you're proud, your head held in the air. I love you when you're sick and need to rest in bed. I love you when you're frisky and standing on your head. I love you when you're sad and need a kiss and hug. I love you when you're playful and rolling on the rug. I love you when you're angry and cross your arms and pout. I love you when you're wild and yell and scream and shout. I love you any way you feel, no matter what you do. I love you any way you are. I love you because you're you." And that's just a cute little rhyme, little poem, little story. I think it encapsulates how mothers love their children, because you're you. And we see that here in our text today. This one mother, the good mother, loved this child enough to put herself in danger and to speak up and to give up her child so that the child could live. The other mother, as a contrast, didn't care. She was the one that said, don't care, cut him in half, because it wasn't her child. She didn't have that love and that care for that child. So with that, I'd like to open it up. We said everybody has or had a mother. I was thinking this morning for myself, and I know for others here in our congregation, I thought of Phil and Mark Yoder, Matt and myself, and maybe there's others here that I'm missing. I'm sorry if I am, but we lost our mothers this past year. This is our first Mother's Day without our moms. And I know many of you that are here this morning have also lost your moms longer ago. But that doesn't matter. If you still have your mom, make sure you tell her you love her. Tell her you love her today. Call her up, or if you haven't already, I'm assuming many of you have already done that this morning. Call her and tell her you love her, and thank her for all the things that she's done for you. If you want to share publicly this morning, now is your chance to do that. Just open it up for anyone who wants to share. Wayne has a mic, so if you want to share, just raise your hand. We'll get you the mic.